Role of Abhyasa, way to realization. There are numerous examples of saints having attained the highest degree of perfection, leading a householder's life all through. In fact, most of the saints who come in Upanishads are householders only. Renunciation is in fact a condition or an inner state of mind which brings to view the transitory and the changing character of things and creating a feeling of non-attachment to such objects. His eyes are fixed every moment on reality, which is unchanging and eternal. He is free from the feeling of attraction or repulsion. This is Vairagya in the true sense of the term. When we have achieved this state of mind, we are free from desires. We feel contented with what is available to us, and the end of desires means the stopping of the formation of the samskaras. What remains now is only to undergo the effect of the previously formed samskaras, which are to be worn out during the course of our life. Nature too helps us in the process by creating a field for Bhoga in order to remove the impressions of our thoughts and actions from the causal body. When these coverings melt away, we begin to assume final forms of existence, and the man who is born in this world is sure to taste miseries. One cannot escape this. When I see the world, I find it very troublesome. Some are groaning with pain, a few are suffering from the loss of their dear ones, a great number of are anxious to achieve success at every step. We try to get rid of these by going into penance, and rishis have devoted themselves thoroughly to it. All that is born of attachment is misery. Pleasure and pain both contribute to misery. Underline ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ರಿ. All that is born of attachment is misery. Pleasure or pain both contribute to misery. There is no remedy for overcoming these miseries except devoting ourselves towards godly thought of the purest nature. We need not renounce the world and go for penance to the forest. Let the material world and the spiritual world go side by side, glittering equally. One cannot be a loser in any way if, in doing his household duties, he brings himself up to the realization of God as well. We should soar with both the wings if we want to succeed. It is a vague idea of the people in general that God is to be searched for in the forest. My idea is that he should be searched for in the art. One is performing the household duties and at the same time is equally busy with godly devotion. You may say that these two things are incompatible and are contradictory to each other, but it is not the case. In the long run, godly wisdom begins to work and one does his duty from the mind beyond. Underline ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ರಿ. One does the duty from the mind beyond. ನಮಗೆ ಪ್ರಹ್ಲಾದ್ ಸ್ಟೋರಿ ಓದ್ದೆ ಅಲ್ವಾ? I read the story of Prahlad. Some component I read to some people in the last week. ಜ್ಞಾಪಕ ಇಲ್ವಾ? Not to this group then. I'll read that later on. Thus, Vairagya can be attained only when we have wholly diverted towards the divine. When it is so, one naturally becomes disinterested in one's own self, including everything connected with it. Thus, he loses not only the body consciousness but subsequently the soul consciousness as well. What remains is nothing. Then is nothing but the being in the dead form or the living dead. Any questions on this? I think fairly straightforward. Vairagya, again, repetitions from the reality at dawn. Any questions? So this concept anyway, we know that we have to take the material and the spiritual, both the wings, and fly with both the wings, both of them glittering. If you just keep flapping one wing, you're not going to fly high. You have to flap both the wings together in order to fly high. Remember that. When you see the bird, you watch the birds how they fly in the evening. Nowadays, people have stopped watching the birds. They don't even know that birds exist. ಅವೇನೋ ಭರತ್, ಯಾವತ್ತು ನೀ ಲಾಸ್ಟ್ ನೋಡಿದ್ದು ಪಕ್ಷಿ ನೋಡಿದ್ದು? When was it that you actually consciously went out to see a bird? You tell me. Can you remember? When was it?
I see daily.
Sorry?
I see daily.
You still didn't.
I see daily. There is nest.
That is something the nest comes into your view. You are not consciously looking at it. Have you gone in search of a nest? That is what I asked. Things that just come into view just accidentally, that is different. But we actually hardly pay any attention, no? Where do you pay attention? Have you ever gone out in the evening when we go out in the sit in the terrace for meditation? We see lots of bats, quite big bats flying around. Then one somebody commented that bats belong to the rat family. Bat and rat are the same. It is just like a flying rat. That's all. They both are active in the night. One moves on the ground, one hangs in the tree. Anyway, so now when people sit here for meditation in the morning, they keep saying that they hear the chirping of the birds and they pay attention to the birds during the meditation. After they open their eyes, they don't pay attention. That's the beauty of it. I've hardly seen anybody comment about the birds outside the meditation. But during the meditation, they say, no, no, I kept hearing all the chirping of the birds. So let's move on. Another 2 pages at least we have to finish today. And then I'll tell you the story of Prahlad. Meditation. Under the Satmark system of training, we start from Dhyan, the seventh step of Patanjali Yoga, fixing our mind on one point in order to practice meditation. The previous steps are not taken separately, but they come automatically into practice as we proceed on with meditation. Thus, much of our time and labor is saved. In certain senses, the usual routine followed for practice is often kept confidential. It is released and revealed only to those who undertake to join them formally. What their purpose at the bottom may be is not quite understandable. Nature has no secrets, and I think that one professing to follow the divine path must also have none. The practice followed in our system is meditation on the heart. The same method has been recommended by Patanjali. There is a great philosophy underlying that. We find ourselves all the time busy with worldly things, and if we are not doing anything, our thought seems to have wings in the leisure hours. We are always in tumult and disorder. Our individual mind has become used to such a characteristic activity, and thus we have made everything topsy turvy. Our actions and thoughts count much in our wrongdoing. When we remain in contact with ideas and thoughts of different kinds, they leave impressions upon our emotional feelings and senses. This was one example I was getting. How do the thing leave impressions? Best example is you eat your food in the hand. After you have washed your hand, 15 minutes later, you just smell it. Don't you smell the food? ಬರುತ್ತೆ ಇವತ್ತು ಮಾಡಿ ನೋಡಪ್ಪ. ಊಟ ಮಾಡಿ ಇವತ್ತು ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಊಟ ಮಾಡು. ಊಟ ಮಾಡಿಬಿಟ್ಟು ಕೈನಲ್ಲಿ ಊಟ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. ಊಟ ಮಾಡಾದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಕೈ ತೊಳ್ಕೊಂಡು ನಾನು ಆಫ್ಟರ್ ದಟ್ ಒಂದ್ಸತಿ ವಾಸನೆ ನೋಡ್ಕೊ ಒಂದು 15-20 ನಿಮಿಷ ಆದ್ಮೇಲೆ. ಅರ್ಧ ಗಂಟೆ ಆದ್ಮೇಲೆ ನೋಡ್ಕೊಂಡ್ರು ಇನ್ನೂ ವಾಸನೆ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ನೋಡಿದ್ಯಾ? This is the easiest example to make them people realize that like the food leaves impression on the hand, you can still smell it long after you have washed the food, long after you have actually finished eating the food. Whatever thoughts and mm, things that happen in the mind, they also leave their impression. Easiest way. Nobody can say that no, 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 I don't have any smell. Correct. So everyone will relate to this example. And if they don't relate, give them some food and after 15 minutes ask them to smell their hand. If they can't smell their hand, you smell their hand. and tell them that it is stinking with the smell of the food. Right? So that's the easiest way. Now, what happens here with food in the hand is exactly what happens in the mind with the thoughts and emotions and everything that we pass through. Does it make sense? ಏನು ಬರುತ್ತೆ ಚೆಕ್ ಮಾಡಿ ನೋಡ್ತೀಯಾ?
No, suppose if we imagine something,
That also leaves an
it,
impression. Any activity of the mind leaves an impression. And stronger the activity of the mind, the more deeper the impression. And then you start believing that. Our psychiatric patients, they imagine a lot of things. That's what is called as hallucinations. There's nothing there, but they imagine certain things. And they believe that the imagination is true. So many psychiatric conditions are nothing but excessive imagination, which they believe to be true. That is psychosis. In other words, when all the aspects of the mind is working in balance, there is no illness. When one or two aspects of the mind are over functioning or under functioning, then you get illness. Does it make sense? Because what happens is when anything that over functions gets a life of its own, whether it's imagination, whether it's thinking, whether it's emotion, whether it's memory, it doesn't matter. It gets a life of its own. Some favorite song that you have heard, you have heard it quite a few times. And now after a few years, you hear that song again. What happens?
imagine that.
Apart from imagination, what else happens? The song goes on ruminating in your mind. You keep settling on the same song again and again. It just goes on in the background. And then sometimes you also start humming the song. It comes to the front. Right? The first time that you heard the song, you did hum. But as when you hear the song again and again, you start humming about the song. Now, after a few years, one time you hear the song and then again you start humming. That's a very simple way of noticing the samskara formation. This you can experiment with anyone. And then within few weeks, you can see that they're humming the song. It could be anything.
No, actually, I wanted to ask one question. Uh, mm, so there was one boy here. He was very like he had completed his what do you call school, and he was into college second year. But his problem was he used to imagine a lot. He at some time he became uh, like mental. He used to do whatever things he wants. So they showed him to psychiatrist, and then he got admitted to mental hospital. So is it because that he imagined so much that the thoughts became?
Anything that you do repeatedly, they start getting a life of its own. That's why. That's why moderation. If you want to stop samskara formation, one thing that we have to practice is moderation. Anything that you do excessively creates an impression, deeper impression, and then it starts having a life of its own. Suppose you say something to somebody, and then they have an argument with you. Now, till that time, there is nothing between the two. After the argument is over and you start ruminating on the argument, when you start ruminating on the argument, that actually acquires a life of its own because now it becomes a covering. Yeah. Next time when you see the person, you look at the person through the prism of this covering of the argument that you had previously. Can it make sense? That's what happens, no? Until you actually overcome it. Now, what is it that we overcome? We actually try to suppress it in the subconscious. Over a period of time, it settles down in the subconscious and we feel that we are out of the effect of it. But however, the effect will still be there because it's there in the subconscious. Can you see? Until it's cleaned. But suppose you don't have the process of cleaning, what happens then? It continues to stay in the heart and more coverings are then formed around it. So then your view of the world will be colored by all these forms, all these coverings that you have now formed one on top of the other. That is what you are actually removing during the process of the sadhana. Okay. Shall we continue? When we remain in contact with ideas and thoughts in different kinds, they leave impressions upon our emotional feelings and senses. All the senses are spoiled and adopt a wrong course. The marks we thus make upon the senses and the Indias turn them solid like rock, having no both or wisdom. Soul is no doubt not acted upon, but we create such obstacles and coverings so as to keep it enwrapped all round like a cocoon. We cannot be even peep into the soul, let alone realizing it. By the effect of our vicious actions and thoughts, we spoil our sense of discrimination and right cognition. Those who have reached this state of solidity do not like to come under the training course of Raja Yoga. This is why people turn a deaf ears to what we say. No practice of Hatha Yoga can bring one true realization at his phase after the Agna Chakra, and there still remains many states still to pass after it. Therefore, Raja Yoga is the only thing that can lead to the end. There is no other means of approaching the center. ಇದು ನೆನ್ನೆ ಓದಿದ್ವಿ ಇದನ್ನು. Raja is the only means to approach the center. We've got within us the same central force, though marred by our wrongdoings. We take work from the same force during meditation, which is the force from the shore. This is how we naturally proceed with nature's force, so to say. When we meditate, the central power we have remains in force. It disperses the overarching, overwhelming clouds which are greatly fried up by its force. It cannot be expressed in words, only an abhyasi can feel it. This can only be known practically. You will soon find yourself swimming in the everlasting peace and happiness. Everything ends here. There remains no attachment with the world. The mind is disciplined and it is regulated automatically. Senses begin to come under control and you gain mastery over them. To master yourself means to master the nature. When the passage becomes clear, you find nature's work within your bounds and limits. Rather, you begin to work yourself. In our system, the Abhyas is advised to meditate on the heart, thinking of the divine light there. But he is directed not to view the light in any form or shape like that of an electric bulb or candle. In that case, the light appearing therein will not be real, but one projected by one's own creative speculation. An Abhyasi is advised to proceed with a mere supposition of light with the thought of divinity at the bottom. What happens then is that we meditate upon the subtlest which is to be attained. The method of meditation on the heart is to think that godly light within it. When you begin meditating in this way, please think only that godly light within is attracting you. Do not mind if extraneous ideas haunt you during meditation. Let them come and go on with you. Go on with your own work. Treat your thoughts and ideas as uninvited guests. Even if they trouble you, think that they are masters and not yours. This process of meditation is very effective and can never fail in bringing about the desired results. This is something that Babuji invented and he practiced as such. So he's now giving the same method for everyone else. Sit in an easy posture for an hour in the morning in a quite natural way. You should only meditate. You should not struggle with your ideas, which generally come during meditation. Concentration is an automatic and the natural result of meditation. Those who insist on concentration in place of meditation and force their mind on it generally meet with failure. In the evening, again sit in the same posture at least for half an hour and think of that the complexities, the network of your previous thoughts and vastness or solidities in your constitution are all melting away or evaporating in the form of smoke from your back. It will help you purge your mind and will make you receptive of the efficacious influence of our great master. As soon as I find that you are free from foreign material, I will either change it in some way or ask you to stop, as the case may be. In this way, we soar up high by awakening and cleaning the chakras and the subpoints thereof, taking up Kundalini at the end, with which the Abhyas has nothing to do with himself. It is exclusively the outwork of the master, but it must be remembered that while practicing these methods, one should not force his mind too much, but only sit in a normal way. Cleaning process ಹೇಳ್ತಿದ್ದಾರೆ. The process of the cleaning is to be repeated for about 5 minutes before meditation practice in the morning as well. Other methods of cleaning may also be advised according to the need of the individual abhyasis, but need not be mentioned here in detail. Suffice it to say that the process of cleaning uses the original power of thought in the form of human will for the refinement of the human individual soul, to enable it to ascend the steep and the slippery path of realization of the subtlest essence of identity. That's what we have been practicing. So let's stop here, then we can continue from here later on. So any questions on this? I think most of the things is anyway repetitions from heartfulness and reality at dawn. Any questions on this? I hope that all of you do this today after food. Not this. This. So this is the yoga sister. Anyway, I hope I can find it though, because there's so many. So you know the story of Prahalad, Hiranyakashipu. You know that story, no? Most of you know the story. So if you not know the story, then you can see the movie Bhakta Prahalad. You'll get to know the story. Okay. So What happens to actually the movie ends with the thing that Hiranyakashipu is killed by Lord Narasimha. That's the end of the story as far as movie is concerned. But what happens after that? After that, Prahlada goes on sitting for meditation, and all the demons become worshippers of Vishnu because of the effect of Prahlada. Then gods are at a loss. What are these fellows? They are not even fighting with us. They've all become good. What to do with these fellows? They don't want everyone to become good, the gods, because otherwise nature cycle will stop. Right? So the gods are also confused. So they go and complain to Vishnu. What are you doing? All these fellows are not doing anything. We are not able to do our work. So, so Vishnu reassures them, saying that Prahalad is my devotee and this is his last birth. And he says that not to worry too much about what Prahalad is doing. Then Prahalad sits in meditation and then he is there immersed in meditation for years together. So the kingdom goes for a toss. Everyone is doing what they want. So there is a lot of chaos around. Then again, Devas go to Vishnu and say, "This fellow is not doing what he's supposed to do. What to do now?" He's sat in deep meditation. Then again, Vishnu comes and says, "Okay." Vishnu appeared before Prahlad and blew his great conch, and Prahlad slowly gained consciousness. Then the Lord pulled down the prana force that was fixed at the 10th opening and directed it downwards to the body, wherefrom Prahlad fully gained consciousness. In other words, Prahlad, the prana force was fixed at the 10th point, and then that had to be pulled down and then directed towards the body so that he can regain the consciousness of the body. Now we talk about the 10th point now. So that's exactly what is written here also. So 10th point here is essentially the Sahasradal Kamal. He was kind of immersed in meditation at Sahasradal Kamal. Then he worshipped the Lord Vishnu, and according to the rites, then Lord Vishnu spoke to Prahlad. O sage, destiny demands that there is still some association with the body for you, with this body for you. Why this premature desire to drop this body? You have attained to the Brahma state. You are not concerned with the being or the non-being, hence you should get up and act according to destiny. That's what we read in the book now. Act according to the destiny. Whatever is destined for us, after having achieved the Brahma state, we don't shed the body, even in our system. After having attained to the highest, we still continue to lead the life in the body according to the destiny. You should get up and act according to destiny. You have to rule for a long time and then only you have to resolve back into Atma. Those who have body ego and suffer from ego attachments deserve to die. Those who are consumed by desires and debilitated by the ideas of the world in their minds deserve to die. Those whose fields are covered with the creepers of desires, bearing fruits of joys and sorrow, deserve to die. The giving up of the bodies by Jiva, who are affected by prejudices and who are serpents of anger and desires living at their roots, whose body, like trees, are hollow and dry, and whose minds are fickle, are is called death. The giving up of the body is called as death. So I just wanted to recite this point that you need to be aware that when Babuji says the spiritual and the material fields both has to go together, for you to be able to do the material things, you need to have awareness of the body and the mind, right? So during the sadhana, you gradually go into higher realms of consciousness. And then if you want to do the activity of the daily living, the material world activities, you come down few notches in the level of consciousness. So every day you are going in, coming out, going in, coming out. In that way, you are gradually expanding. That is what is happening. Does it make sense? In other words, by doing these two things, you are developing flexibility of consciousness. Okay? And Lalaji says to Babuji that you have to develop flexibility of consciousness. Don't be fixed in the higher regions only. You have to come back to the heart and start doing certain things. And that is what we are doing. When Lalaji, Babuji says you have to take the material and the spiritual together, this is what you are talking about, where you are developing flexibility of the consciousness. So when needed during the course of the meditation, you go high. When needed for the materialistic work, you come down few notches. And then once the work is over, you go high again. That is what happens. Eventually, what happens is you start stabilizing at higher and higher levels of consciousness and start acting from there. In other words, you start developing the capability of being in a higher level of consciousness, but still being able to do the day-to-day work. Eventually, you are able to do everything in this world while being established at the highest level, the center. That is called as Sahaja Samadhi. Can you see how you are practicing? Gradually moving towards Sahaja Samadhi. Now, if you stop doing what you are supposed to do in the material world, your ability to develop this Sahaja Samadhi is impeded. Sahaja Samadhi is being established at the highest level while being functional in this world. And you stop being functional in this world. Where is the question of Sahaja Samadhi? You stop functioning in this world. Then what? You are not established in that Sahaja Samadhi. That's why very few people have the concept of Sahaja Samadhi and being able to do that. So when you see Daji in action, Daji is in Sahaja Samadhi. You see him in action at all levels, but internally they are established at the highest level. While being established at the highest level, they continue to perform the function in this world. In other words, they have that flexibility of consciousness. So for you to develop the flexibility of the consciousness, the best thing to do is be in this world while you do the spiritual sadhana. Does it make sense? Any questions on this? Bharat has gone away to just work out where exactly is his consciousness stuck, to bring it back down. ಏನಯ್ಯ ಭರತ್ ಹುಡ್ಕೊ ಬಂದ್ಯಾ ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಸಿಕ್ಕಾಕೊಂಡಿತ್ತು ಅಂತ ಮನೇಲಿ ಬೆಳಗ್ಗೆ ಎದ್ದು ಒಂದು ಲೋಟ ಕಾಫಿ ಬರುತ್ತೆ ಅವನಿಗೆ ಆಮೇಲೆ ಒಂದು ರೌಂಡ್ ಏನಾದ್ರು ಪುರ್ಕಲಿ ತಿಂಡಿ ಬರುತ್ತೆ ತಿನ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಅವನು ಏನಾದ್ರು ಬಂದಿದ ತಕ್ಷಣ ಚಕ್ ಅಂತ ವಿಡಿಯೋ ಆಫ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾನೆ if somebody were to ask you why you have to do both spiritual and material, take both of them together, now you have an idea why you are doing it together. It is for gradually expanding and developing flexibility of consciousness. And as you do that, you stabilize at a higher and higher levels of consciousness and still be able to function.
So basically, it's like creating a path. We know the path now.
Yes. Every day you go on creating the path. That's why every day you have to do the sadhana, every day you have to lead the normal life. Leading the normal life is what is going to give you flexibility of consciousness. If somebody is established at the higher level, because they have quit the world and they are established at the higher level of consciousness, now they will not be able to function at a lower level if necessary. So this being ability to function at a lower level and higher level at ease is what is called as the flexibility of the consciousness. When needed, you can go up. When needed, you can come down. But you will make sure that your base is at a higher level each time. ಸರಿನಾ? ಏನು ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಇಲ್ವಾ? ಏನು ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿಗೆ ನಿಲ್ಸೋಣ ಅಂದ್ರೆ.
One question. In the previous paragraph, as soon as I find that you are free from foreign matters, I will either change it in some other way or ask you to stop.
I will either
change it in some other way or ask you to stop.
When you have got rid of all the samskaras, then there is no need for cleaning. So then he'll ask you to stop. Or what he's going to do is he'll change the course of your journey. Now that you're rid of the foreign material, he's going to change the course of the journey. In other words, give you the next stage of the spiritual journey. That's all. That's what he's talking about. In other words, essentially, you try to get rid of the samskaras as much as possible so that the next part of the journey can actually be opened up by the master. That's our part, to cooperate. Can you hear the noise in the background? No noise in the background?